Have you ever wondered what would happen if you suddenly won the lottery? What would you do if you suddenly had $2 million? This is the story of a man who won the lottery and learned the real value of money. The ticket looked completely ordinary, a thin piece of paper with a few numbers printed on it. But that morning, in the small town square, Daniel stared at the newspaper and his hands began to shake. One by one, the numbers matched his ticket. For a moment, the world around him went silent. The noise of the market, the vendors shouting, the carts rolling over the cobblestones, everything faded away. He had won. Not a small amount. A real fortune. $2 million. Within a few hours, the whole town knew. People who could barely remember his name before suddenly became old friends. Someone shouted, "Drinks tonight with Daniel!" Daniel, 22 years old, laughed. He had just finished his studies and had recently started working at a restaurant. Why not? That night, the town's tavern was full. Music was playing, glasses were clinking, and Daniel sat in the middle of the crowd like a king. The next day, during a ceremony, after taxes were deducted, Daniel received $1,400,000. A few days later, an old man stopped him in the market. His name was Samuel, a calm and wise man whom people in the town often visited for advice. He looked at Daniel and said, "Fortunes disappear much faster than they appear." Daniel smiled and replied, "Don't worry, that money is so much it'll never run out." Samuel paused for a moment and then said, "Then let's make a simple deal. Put half of your money somewhere that isn't easy to access, in the town bank's safety deposit box, somewhere you can't touch it whenever you want." Daniel laughed. "Why should I do that?" The old man replied, "So that a few months from now, when the rest of your money is gone, something will still remain." Daniel was certain that would never happen. But just to prove the old man wrong, he went that same day and placed half of his money, $700,000, into the town bank's safety deposit box. "See," he said with a laugh, "that money will stay there because I'll never need it." Samuel simply smiled. "I hope so." The first night was only supposed to be one simple drink. But news about winning $2 million spreads very quickly in a small town. By evening, the old tavern was packed. The music was louder than ever, and everyone had gathered around Daniel's table. "Tonight's on me," Daniel said with a grin. Glasses were raised. 1 became 2. 2 became 10. Someone said they should throw a bigger celebration. Someone else brought musicians. By midnight, no one was counting how many bottles had been opened. The next day, Daniel quit his job at the restaurant. That night, the celebration was even bigger. Old friends came along with new ones. People Daniel didn't even know sat next to him, told him stories, and drank to his health. "You've changed our lives, man. Daniel, you're the best guy in this town." Daniel laughed and felt like he was floating in the sky with happiness. He only said one thing: order whatever you want. A few weeks later, the parties were no longer just in the tavern. One weekend, he took everyone to the beach. He rented a large house with windows facing the ocean. During the day, they walked on the warm sand, and at night, they lit fires. They played music, danced, and stayed awake until morning. After that came Las Vegas. The lights of the city shone like daylight. Daniel tossed chips onto casino tables with a smile, bought expensive dinners for everyone, and filled luxury hotel rooms with people every night. His friends kept saying, "This is just the beginning," and it truly seemed that way. He bought a new car, expensive clothes, gifts for his friends. Every night was a party. Every week was a trip. Every day was spending without thinking. Money slipped through his fingers like water. But in those days, Daniel didn't notice, because everywhere he went, there was music, there was laughter, and people he thought were his best friends. 7 months later, when autumn arrived, the noise of those days had slowly faded. Daniel's account was empty, and he only had a little cash left. The nights were no longer as crowded as before. The big table that was always surrounded by people now sometimes had only a few sitting around it.
That night, Daniel went back to the same tavern where all the celebrations had begun. A few of the old friends were sitting in a corner. When they saw him, they smiled and made space for him. One of them said, "Daniel, tonight we should celebrate like the old days." The waiter came and placed the bill for the previous table on the table. Everyone's eyes quietly turned toward Daniel. Daniel reached into his pocket. He opened his wallet.
Inside were only a few crumpled bills. For a moment, a strange silence settled over the table. With a short laugh, Daniel said, "I guess tonight everyone pays for themselves." No one said anything. One person stood up with an excuse. Another said he had to get home early. Within a few minutes, the table was almost empty. Daniel sat there and stared at his half-full glass. For the first time in months, the silence around him felt heavy. There was no loud music, no laughter, only the quiet sound of the autumn wind passing through the street. That was the moment when the truth slowly revealed itself. He didn't have many friends. He had only had a lot of money. And now that the money was gone, most of the people were gone too. Daniel left the tavern and sat on a bench by the street. The lights shone beneath the yellow autumn leaves. Suddenly, he remembered a sentence. Fortunes disappear much faster than they appear. Samuel's voice was still alive in his mind. He walked through the streets until morning, thinking. He replayed every moment of those 7 months. The next morning, for the first time in months, he walked toward the old town market, and then toward the old man's house. He paused for a moment at the door. He knew very well that $700,000 was still sitting in the town bank's safety deposit box.
He knocked. Samuel opened the door and looked at him without surprise, as if he already knew why he had come. Daniel stepped inside and stood silently for a moment. "I know my money is still in the safety deposit box," he finally said. "I could go and take it today, but I won't." He sat down and spoke more quietly. "Because if I'm still the same man I was before, it will only take a little longer to lose it all again. I came to ask you what I should do with it before it's too late," Samuel said calmly. "First, you must learn how money is made before you learn how to spend it." He leaned back in his chair and continued. "That $700,000 will stay exactly where it is for now. You won't touch it. Not today, not tomorrow." Daniel listened carefully. "Instead, starting tomorrow, you will begin to work. Not for money, but to understand its value," the old man said. "For a while, you will work beside people who build things, carpenters, shopkeepers, people who know where every dollar comes from. When you learn how money is earned, then you will understand what to do with the money sleeping in that box." Daniel slowly nodded. He had no rush to take that money. He had only won the lottery once. His second fortune was wisdom.